Hey guys, well I'm glad you stopped by, and what we're doing today is I have a couple more tricks up my sleeve for this old Jeep behind me. Still misfiring on number 6 cylinder, but we're gonna get that fixed no matter what. If I have to throw grenades, I'll throw grenades, but I just wanted to give you a little background before we get into it. I changed the plugs, I tested the coil, changed the coil, took the coil back off, put the old one back on because there was nothing wrong with it. I'm going to do a compression test. I'm going to do a injector swap. I'm going to test resistance on the injector harness first, and then we're going to throw some injectors in it. And if that doesn't fix it, we're going to do a couple of carbon cleaning things, and that's going to be that. And if it doesn't run after that, I'm probably going to have to pull the head off. But that's a little background into what we're going to be doing. So I hope you enjoy the content, and thanks for coming by today. This is Overland Garage. So the first thing I'm actually going to do before I do all that stuff that I mentioned is I'm going to pull the intake box off, and I'm going to try the old water carbon cleaning trick, and that is you take a cup of water and you pour it into the throttle body very slowly, and you keep the RPMs up because you don't want to do that too fast or you could damage something. But we're going to pour it in real slowly, and what that does is that creates like a steam bath, and it loosens all that carbon up and blows it out the exhaust. So that's the first thing that we're going to do to try to maybe free up any valves that are sticking or anything like that. So that's what we're going to do right now. So the first thing I do with this is you want to grab yourself just a soda can. That's all you really need. And fill that up with water, and then you want to bring the motor up to operating temperature, and it is now. So I'm going to show you exactly what we're going to do. We're just going to bring the idle up to like 2,500 RPM. It's not too crazy, and then very slowly pour this into the throttle body. Now in theory what that should have done is done a steam bath to everything. So I'm gonna run it a little bit longer and we'll see if that fixed anything. So next we're gonna test fuel injectors, because that little steam bath I gave it didn't seem to help a whole lot. But we're gonna test the resistance of the fuel injectors, and what you want to do is grab your trusty multimeter and you're gonna set it to, I don't know if you can see this, but you're gonna set it to ohms, and that's the little sign here, the little omega sign. And then we're gonna be looking for, the first thing you want to do when you turn your multimeter on to ohms is you want to touch the leads together. Should be no greater than 0.5 to like 1. If it's any greater than that, you need to make sure your connections are good on your leads. But yeah, so we'll test the first injector, and then we'll see what the resistance of that is, and then we'll test the second one. And we're just going to touch the 2 leads to the prongs inside the injectors, and that should give us a pretty good understanding of what's going on. And if they're all the same, then the injectors are likely okay. But if there's that number 6, which is what I suspect is really out of whack, then we're going to change all of them, because I have all of them. So with that, let's get going. Now the cool thing with this multimeter is I can hold a parameter. So I'll just do this real quick. I push put these connectors in, the pins in here, rather. If I can get these pins in here. Kind of hard to hold on to these with one hand. That's why they recommend using alligator clips, but it sounded like too much work. So, I'm going to show you real quick. You see that's at 14.1. So you're allowed plus or minus of the specified number in your owner's manual or your service manual, plus or minus and 1 or 2 of this number. So the number is supposed to be 14, so you know that injector is good because it's 14.1. So we're gonna do this with all 6 of them, and then I'll let you know the results when I get done. Well, I was hoping that it would be one injector that was bad, and they all ohmed out with the right specs, so it's not what I wanted, but at least on the positive note, it rules out that I don't have to take the injectors off and test those. So I'm gonna move back over to the other side. I'm gonna pull that coil back off, and I'm gonna look at all the wiring in that wiring harness for that coil and see if maybe I missed something and maybe something's broken, and we can solve this misfire that way. One thing I wanted to note when you do the what I was gonna say about the multimeters. One thing when you're testing with the multimeter is when you're testing for resistance, make sure you hold those pins completely still and wait for the numbers on the ohms to stop moving. Or at least close. Because you don't want to be like stick them on real quick and go, oh yeah, got the reading. Well, you want to wait till that stuff kind of settles down and gets an accurate number. That way you can really say, hey, that's the number. But let's move over to the coil and test that. Basically right now all I'm doing is I'm going to test this connector and make sure that we're getting a 12 volt signal, which we should be. I mean, it's not like a lot changed here. If we weren't getting a good signal, it wouldn't even start, I would think. And obviously we're not going to get a signal until it's running. But I could also, let's test resistance real quick, see what we're getting across these. There's no weird numbers, so it tells me that's all good. So I think what we're going to do next is we're going to pull the coil back off and pull out spark plug number 6 and do a compression test, and then I'll show you how that works and we'll go from there. And it helps if you grab the right socket. These are a bit toasty. Snag this thing right out. My personal favorite is they put everything right in the way, so you can't work on nothing. One coil out of the way. I'm just going to pull number 6 plug out. I've already loosened it up a little bit. Probably going to take more than one plug out. Probably going to do a compression test on all 6 cylinders, but I've got to at least take this one out and inspect it because it's been misfiring, and I want to see if there's something wrong with the plug itself. Wouldn't it be nice if that was the case? Get out of here. Come on! The plug looks like it's... See what I can see? The plug looks like it's definitely firing. It's kind of confusing, so... It doesn't smell all gassy or anything, and it is actually burning, so it's a little more concerning than I was hoping. So I think what we're going to do is I will do a compression test on that cylinder just to verify, but I think what I want to do is pull the valve cover because I think it's possible I got a broken spring or something in there. So we're going to pull that valve cover and we're going to go from there. Here goes nothing. Probably a good idea to remember where you took these bolts out, but I'm going to do the right thing and just take them out and not look. That's how I roll. I've heard some rumors with these Jeeps from talking to people that they have issues with the valve covers leaking anyways. So we're gonna inspect the valve cover gasket as well while we're in there, because why not? We're there. Might as well look at it. That one was finger tight. That's good. There. Need to have 15-mile long arms to get in here. Oh no. Don't do that. Bolts inside a valve cover bad. It's alright, we're gonna get it out of there. It's coming out anyways, like it or not. Apparently you need some sort of specialized socket to get in there. We're not gonna let that beat us though. So guys, I skipped a step and I actually did a compression test. That cylinder had like 125 psi, and that's way more than it. That's plenty. So I don't know what's going on, but we're gonna throw the spark plug back in. We're gonna put the coil back on, and I'm gonna start it with the valve cover off and see if I got a valve spring that's broken back in there or something. And I'll show you what that looks like if it is in fact a broken valve spring. We'll go from there. One thing I did notice, and I'm not sure if this is a problem, but you know, washers don't belong in the valve train. So let's just hope that that wasn't the issue, or that it was the issue and it's simple. But we'll put this back together and then we're gonna start it and see what it looks like. Well, here goes nothing. Well, you never count out the simple stuff, and I was like messing around with the wiring harness in there on the back of the coil, and I got electrocuted. So I'm gonna address that, and I think that's the problem. I think it's shorting out the coil and not firing on all 6 cylinders. So all of this stuff that we did, it's a good idea to do it if you can't see anything, but what did we learn? We should have checked that wiring harness first. I looked at it initially, but it looked fine, and then as I was peeling back covering, I noticed just now that there's a chafe in the wire. So we're gonna deal with that chafe and see if that's the reason why it's misfiring. So I want to show you what I think is wrong, and you're gonna like this. So I don't know if you can see this. Hold on. But this wire right here, it's pretty hard to see, but it's a chafe right here, and I was reaching for it to kind of tug on it and see what was going on, and I got lit up like a Christmas tree. And what I found is this is number 1. If you can look at the connector and you see number 1 on it. Well, number 1 is this coil driver. It's the number 6 and 5 cylinder coil driver. So that wire being chafed is giving a false reading to that coil and creating a misfire, hopefully. So I'm gonna unpin this connector and see if I can get this wire unexposed, and maybe if I have to, I'll cut it out and repin it, and then we will plug it back in and see if it stops misfiring. But it's a lot of work that I went through just to find this little wire, but this is how it goes sometimes. If you notice in my Duramax video, and I'll put the card should be showing up right now, I had the same problem with that, but it was a crank sensor. So wiring harnesses are always the things you need to check first, and sometimes you miss them even if you check them, but check wiring. So what I got in my hand right now is a heat shrink tubing, and I'll throw a link in the description down here, but what I'm literally gonna I tested the wire, I pulled on it, and that's the test. You want to pull on it and peel the covering back a little bit just to make sure that that wire is not broken. And the pull test really tells if that wire is broken, it'll just pull right apart. And it's not, it's just chafed apart. So what I'm literally going to do is slide this on and heat shrink it back on and repin it into the connector and plug it in, see if it works. Another thing you might be going, why use red? Well, red is like my favorite color, and it shows up. So when you look at a wiring harness and you're inspecting it in the future, you can go, oh yeah, I already fixed that one. So that's the reason for red shrink tube. Look at that. See, it's all nice and red, and I know that I fixed that wire. So It's all repinned, and I'm going to plug it back in and see if it stopped misfiring. So I once again noticed something else that's simple and it's easy to miss, but two things. Number one, there's a vacuum line disconnected right off the side of the intake manifold, and that would definitely cause a lean slash manifold pressure problem, and perhaps a misfire, maybe not. But the other thing I noticed is I was reading the data stream, and that is the graph on the computer and what the parameters are for the fuel system. And even though I had the correct resistance on the injectors when the vehicle wasn't running, I noticed that the what's called the calculated fuel load was different from bank 1 to bank 2, and that would be the front sensors and the back injectors. So because of the high mileage, the vehicle's got about 200,000 miles, I think it's proper to change the fuel injectors. So I'm going to change the fuel injectors, and we're going to just throw this all together as one big video because there was a lot of diagnosing, and we'll do a recap at the end, but I still want to change the injectors and then take it for a test drive. So hang in there while we do that, and I'll show you the step-by-step process for that. So I fibbed, and instead of doing the injectors in this video, I'm going to throw another video together for you guys because it's just going to be way too long to give you the in-depth procedures for what's required to do the injector swap. So I thank you guys for joining today, and I will be putting a link to the next video in the description, or I at least will be giving you a follow-up for the playlist. But if you like this content, don't forget to give us a thumbs up, and we look forward to seeing you out on the trails. Thanks for watching Overland Garage.